the modern Europeans or modern Asians or modern Persians, right, and modern Arabs, because y'all all Ottoman Turks. Like we'll get back into this history and stuff, but yeah. All of them, they share this bloodline, or they share this consistency in lacking pigment, strictly because of the Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA that's in there. So if y'all remember the scientific articles where we put up, we're going to put everything back up and try and get it out so you guys can spread it to your families, and not to force it on them, but you're just going to let them know. So in the back of their mind, when shit is happening and all the crazy shit you're talking about starts to take place, they'll remember at least some, if not all, of what you were saying. So hopefully they'll consider then, because a lot of them are dickheads now. Yeah, that rhesus blood type has a lot to do with it. But we'll get back into that. So anyway, I was having this discussion, or not really discussion, a little slight exchange with some page named Aliens Are Black. And I found out about that page from Cloaked Ships page, right? And this is the danger of following after the other nations and what they were teaching. Let me just close this door real quick so niggas ain't listen to my conversation. All right, so remember when I was telling y'all that there was going to come a time when people were going to be teaching that these aliens are our ancestors. The ancestors. Call on the ancestors. Fuck out of here. They're not our ancestors. They're more like our cousins, if anything. Okay? Or really distant cousins. Okay? That's for one. For two, all of them are not good. So there's good Anunnaki. There are bad Anunnaki. Or that's what the Sumerians called them. Keep in mind that Abraham, remember Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Abraham was from Ur of the Chaldees. Ur of the Chaldees is Sumeria, or a city in Sumeria, the major city in Sumeria. Our ancestor Abraham, I'm talking not all Adamic people. Now I'm just talking about us Israelites. Abraham linked up with the God of all gods. He linked up with Archangel Michael, who represents the eternal source, the timeless, genderless, formless energy or source or presence, right? Our God is the representative of that presence, that spirit. So, for instance, I want y'all, for those of y'all that got a Torah on hand, or if you got your Bible, you can use your Bible too, because the Torah's in there. I need you to go to Genesis 31, chapter 31. Just give me a thumbs up when you niggas is there. Or if you're on your computer, type in Genesis 31 and then go to verse 10. Type it in and then just put some thumbs up so I know that some of y'all are there. And I'm gonna wait till y'all do that. He's a representative. So if the God of all gods, who creates both good and evil and uses them for his purpose, doesn't have an image, is formless, has no gender, nothing, right? He's the CEO. That's the CEO. And you can say it, but you hear me say he because masculine dominates over feminine. That's all that is. Has nothing to do with anything sexist. Before any of the fucking feminists come in here crying about shit. Okay? All right? So let me finish answering this for her and then for presidential, and then we'll get into why I brought you to Genesis 31. So that's the representative God. Then you have the angels, or the Elohim, who act on behalf of this source. So they're the ones who manipulate and create matter and go around and do things. They act as the arms, the eyes, the legs, the hands of this supreme mind, this formless being. Right? They act on its behalf. Now, that was in the age of perfection. But when the fall happened, and this is during the days of what this world calls Atlantis, this was Genesis 1 or Genesis 1 and 2. So remember, Genesis 1 was an age of perfection. That's the golden age that everybody talks about. As I understand it, that was the age of free will for the angelic beings to work out, if they were going to follow instructions or rebel. Okay? The Most High gave them their chance, and they decided to, create a whole bunch of fuckery. And if y'all read the Atlantis legends, it's the same thing pretty much that happened during Noah's time. And it's the same thing that's going to happen during our time. Okay? So during the stage of Genesis 1 and 2, it talks about destruction. Okay? So that formerly perfect age or golden age in Genesis 1 and 1 was destroyed by earthly cataclysms and wars of the gods. So when it talks about war of the gods in Greek culture, you have the war of the war of the gods, Zeus versus Hades versus all. That's that portion that it's talking about. Okay? Now, in Genesis 1 and 2, when you read it in Hebrew, go to the Hebrew words, you're going to see that it talks about destruction, a flooding. So Noah's flood wasn't the only flood, nor was it the first flood. As far as we know, in this rendition of time that's recorded, there was a flood before Noah. Okay? That was the flood. We just call that the flood of Atlantis, maybe. Okay? Or the age before Atlantis. Wrath of the Titans. My man got it right there. He know what I'm talking about. All right? So in this age of Genesis 1 and 2, you're going to find the details spoken about in the book of Job. In the book of Job, he references an age where there was no man on the face of the earth. So remember, Genesis 1 and 2, Adam was not created. He's not in existence. So these are a whole separate beings. Right? Nigga, don't ask me about no motherfucking gloves. Just pay attention to what the fuck I'm saying to get out. Do the dumb shit. Anyway, so just remember that these beings could be mud flood. I don't know. I haven't paid too much attention to that yet, so I don't know where to place it. But Genesis 1 and 2 in the book of Job, it talks about there being buildings and former societies on the earth, but there is no man. So where do buildings come from without men to build them? Where did they come from? Or beings on the earth to build them? Where did they come from? They had to have been built by something, and those beings which were formerly residing on the earth before Adam had to have been engaging in some fuckery, okay, for which there was a worldwide cataclysm. All right? Then you move on to the restoration of the earth, right? So those of y'all that remember my Purple Dawn breakdown, right? When we were talking about the age of Genesis 1 and 1 to Genesis 1 and 2, right? Okay, that's what that was about. We'll get back into that for you newbies. We'll get back into that. All right, so Genesis 1 and 3 up until Genesis 2 is the creation of, I'll get to that part in Job. Once you see me teach about all this stuff, you'll see me put the actual scriptures there like you always see me do. Y'all know I don't, well, for those of y'all that know me, y'all know I don't, take this shit off. Y'all know I don't come slacking, right? I give you exactly what it is. So anyway, from Genesis 1 and 3 to Genesis 2 and the beginning of the creation of Adam was the restoration age. Okay? So notice how there was destruction of everything. The stars, the moon, the sun, there was no celestial body, no nothing. Right? Then in this next rendition from Genesis 1 and 3 to the beginnings of Genesis 2, there's the creation of the sun, the moon, the celestial stars, all of that type of stuff. Right? Then in Genesis 1, you see there being a creation of man and woman at the same time. That's not talking about Adam. Those are pre-Adamites. Those are different. I don't know whether they're Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo the Hobbit Homo brand of humanoids. I'm not sure. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. Right? But I'm just telling you, they're not Adam. So the man and woman that was created in Genesis chapter 1 has nothing to do with Adam. Nothing. Right? When you break down the details, they were given totally different instructions. They had total different limitations. They did not have the breath of life, meaning they didn't have a consciousness to perceive past, present, and future like we can. We can process both past, present, and future, which is an extension of the abilities of the Creator, because the Creator is outside of the time-space continuum. So our Creator processes time in a whole different mind state and magnitude than we do, which is why our Torah Tanakh is such a gift, because out of all the things they're talking about in terms of the multiverse, different possibilities of different realities. Now you're talking about existentialism and metaphysics. For those of y'all that know those type of philosophical categories, if you've gotten into it, phenomenal. If you haven't, you should. Okay, so existentialism, for example, is questioning the purpose of life. Like, for instance, why was man created to have the form that we have? You understand? Why wasn't man created to have a different form? Why do human beings breathe oxygen instead of breathing carbon? Like, that's existentialism for you. Okay, on a simple way to put it. But anyway, the beings who created the Genesis 1 pre-Adamites, those are these angel classes that you see us talking about. So that was under the dominion and the rule of what we call Azazel or Satan, or the fallen angel, the cherub that fell. That was under his dominion. Okay, so to bring it back to comparison with the Sumerian text, you have Enlil and Enki. Okay, with Enlil and Enki, as I understand it, Enlil is the archangel Michael, and this is why we're going to get back to Genesis 31. So I'm trying to bring it all around circle for you, be as concise as possible. Right, so Enlil would be Enki, represented by the eagle, right? And then Azazel, or the seraphim that fell, or cherub that fell, he would represent Enki. Enki being Prometheus, Kronos, Shiva, Jesus. What's another alias? Apollo, Abaddon. Across different cultures and different time periods, these same gods have been referenced by different names. Okay, so it's like, you know what it's like? It's like the New York Post and the New York Times. Okay? The New York Post, there you go, Osiris, yep, Isis, Ishtar, Ashtaroth. This is why the Galactic Federation of Light, pretending to be aliens, telling you that they are run by some god named Astarte, which is Astaroth, Ishtar. Ishtar being worshipped as the Owl of Moloch. The Owl of Moloch being utilized by satanic, pedophilic Freemasons subscribing to the spiritual religion of Black Sun cult worship. Black Sun cult worship being represented in symbolism by Saturn, being what the scriptures refers to as what is it called? The scriptures refers to it as the mystery religion of Babylon. This is all the same thing. So mystery religion of Babylon, Freemasonry, the cult of Saturn, and the Black Sun cult are all the same thing. All the same thing. Right, them Pleiadians are them pale-faced beings, them fallen angels. All right, so let me continue to go down the Genesis timeline. So I'll re-put up the videos where I broke down for people how Genesis 1, contextually speaking, is separate from the creation story of Genesis 2. Okay? And just to give you some insight into the context, you'll read in Genesis either 2 or 3 that Adam was given the task of protecting the garden. If he was the first being created, right? Who is he protecting the garden from? It's got to be the beings from Genesis 1 who came before him. And our God didn't want us intermingling our bloodline with them, which is what this all is about, keeping a pure bloodline, right? And also, here's another clue. When Cain was kicked out of his abode, right? When he was kicked out and sent into the land of Nod, right? Why would he build a city? Who he building a city for? You know how big a fucking city is just for one nigga by himself? Come on, nigga. How did he get a wife? I know some of the books in Jasher or Jubilee say that they married their twin sisters. I don't know. I got to pray on that and see what answers I get. But there's two conflicting stories there, so I'm not sure which one is which. But we're going to assume that there were no twin sisters because that's not spoken about in the Torah. So we're just going to assume that isn't true for now, right? Not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's not true for now. Where did he get a wife from if he was the only one? They were the only ones there. It's only his daddy, his mom, and he already killed his brother. So he the only nigga left. And Seth isn't born yet. So who is he there building the city